April of 2020, the NGCOA began hosting weekly, live, hour-long chats open to anyone in the golf business. Each week, NGCOA CEO Jay Karen, accompanied by Don Ray, NGCOA board member and owner of Augusta Ranch Golf Club, discussed the state of the NGCOA, delved into challenges related to the COVID-19 crisis, and explored business topics of interest with special guests from golf, industry, and government relations. You can watch or rewatch these interesting and informative sessions on demand on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/NGCOA. Now, enjoy today's Golf Business Live.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to this Tuesday edition of Golf Business Live. I'm Dave Barton, the NGCOA Director of Education, and we thank you for being with us today. Our presenters today for part one of Driving Revenue Through the Golfer Journey, Experience Satisfiers and Dissatisfiers are David Pierce, the Director of Research and Operations with the Green Section at the USGA, Chris Schoonover, PhD, Director of Operations and Assistant Competitions Director at Erin Hills and a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Stout, as well as Eric Bry, also a PhD and a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Stout. As a reminder, part two will be Thursday at the same time, 1 p.m., Just a couple of housekeeping rules and we'll get going. Attendee video and microphones are disabled, but questions are encouraged and may be submitted through the chat and comment feature at the bottom of your screen. Our presenters will answer as many questions as they can at the end of the presentation, and the webinar should be posted at ngcoa.org within 24 hours or so. So with that, we're going to bring on David, Chris, and Eric and welcome them to Golf Business Live. Folks, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, great to see you. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you now and have a great presentation.
Thank you. Quick introduction. My name is Chris Schoonover. I am a program director and instructor within the School of Hospitality at the University of Wisconsin-Stout, which is where I'm coming from to you today, and happy to share research that Eric Bry and I have worked on for over the last 2 years with the support of the United States Golf Association. So my colleague Eric.
So my name is Eric Bryan. I'm a professor at UW-Stout. And while I am an avid golfer, I can always get better. And so I really jumped into it and loving the research and working with everybody, understanding golfers and what we can do to make it better for us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Pierce. I'm Director of Research and Operations for the Green Section at the USGA. I've been with the USGA about 3 years after about 35 years in the chemical industry as a research and new business development director. And one of our primary areas of focus is studying the golfer experience. So the USGA mission and vision is a thriving, welcoming, and sustainable game. And I want to emphasize a thriving and sustainable game. And those are two critical things that the Green Section mission flows directly from the USGA vision, where we're squarely focused on helping facilities to optimize their use of their resources, both time and budget, to present the best possible golf course or their product to golfers who are their customers. And we're committed to helping the industry achieve the aspirational targets in the challenge statement of reducing resources by 25% and improving golfer experience by 20% by 2025. In order to improve golfer experience, we need to understand it better. So this study has roots in an overall effort that began in 2017. The USGA has funded the work being presented today by Eric and Chris to dig deep into the fundamentals of the golfer experience. Early survey work was completed to support this. While there is some significant alignment between what facilities thought was important to golfers, there were also areas of disconnect. You can see here in this slide that for about the first 5 of them, with the importance of the conditions of golf course at the top of the list, that there was decent alignment between what golfers wanted and what facilities believed golfers would want. Whether it was the people you play with, how easy it was to book a tee time, the pace of play, or the overall beauty and physical aesthetics of the course. There was also, though, some misalignment, and you can see the last two on this slide, the availability of restroom facilities and appropriate directional signage, golfers thought it was much more important for these versus what the golf facilities believe their customers would want. The disconnect continued on additional characteristics here. And the only one you'll notice where golf facilities overvalued what they thought was important to golfers versus what golfers thought was around the golf shop staff available to greet and direct. So that interaction between the golf shop, the facilities, and the personnel, the facilities valued that more than the golfers actually did. But the rest of them, you can see whether it was availability of drinking water, down through flexible pricing, pay by hole or time, or really what we're talking about there is golfers want more flexibility in how many holes they might be able to play and pay for, where golf facilities ranked that extremely low. Golfers still thought that was fairly important. I'm going to turn it over to Chris now to take it from here.
Well, what we wanted to do is have you first understand that this research was done pre-COVID. And I wanted to bring you up to speed as to why this research is important. So when we were finalizing this presentation, we're happy to say that rounds are up, but within a pandemic. And it's record setting. It's the first time that I've looked at research and the number of rounds that have been done throughout the entire country in the month of September, data driven through data tech, is that it's been a pleasant surprise. We hope those revenues continue. We hope that opportunities continue to have players come and be at our golf courses. On the other end of it, obviously spring, with the COVID coming to the US, we understood that there were rounds that were lost. And can we get those rounds back? We are hoping that with this data through 2021 and beyond, that you're able to see an opportunity to retain those guests that are with you currently through those expectations, those motivations, and those desires to return, because the satisfaction has been complete and exceeded. And that's what we hope these results do for you.
So now to the heart of really what you guys are all here to learn, and that are what are our findings? What did we find out from over a year of talking with, interviewing, and conducting surveys with golfers? And so it's important to realize that today we're going to focus just on steps in the process of the golf experience, why golfers golf, and what they really look for. On Thursday, we're going to talk more about satisfaction touch points and really understanding the on-course, understanding the on-course touch points. To make sure that we got results that were not only reliable but valuable, we wanted to make sure that we had a very wide cross sections of golfers involved in this first step. And the first step really was the focus groups. In order to identify the right group of participants, we developed a very extensive golfer descriptive survey. And we did this because we wanted to have a good cross section of people who haven't not only played the game for 30 years, but those who may have just picked it up from ages 80 down to 19 or 20. And when we looked at understanding a wide cross section of golfers, we really wanted to focus on things like commitment. How much do people really love the game? Gender, ethnicity, age, income, time playing, and total rounds. Because we know there are significant difference between someone who's just started the game and someone who's been there for 20 years, and someone like myself who only plays 20 rounds and someone who might play 150 rounds. We also wanted to understand the time and the availability of playing golf. So we looked at family status, the presence of kids, membership of the type of golf that people like to play, who they like to play with, the kinds of courses, and their overall adoption of technology. When you think about technology and its overall role, there is no doubting that technology will continue to play a role. But we wanted to make sure there was space inside these focus groups for those who may not want technology, and what are they really looking for? So when you think about these focus groups, it was important to not only have a diversity in the selection of people who we talk to, but also the location and the types of courses that we were at. We visited courses ranging from high-end private clubs to municipality-owned courses, all the way from California and Minnesota, New Jersey, South Carolina, and here in our home state in Wisconsin. With this wide net, we really were able to find a great group of people who participated in 17 different focus groups. Typically, there were about 8 participants, and we spent an hour and a half talking with them. When it came to the focus group itself, we really focused on 3 aspects. A, why do you golf? B, what do you expect from a round of golf? And most importantly, what touch points are most important before, during, and after a round of golf? Chris will talk about it a little later on in our session, but it was important to really look at not just what happens on the course, but before and after, because that presents a lot of great opportunities for operators like yourself to really engage and drive interest in this game we all love. To make sure that we didn't skip anything and had valid research, we made sure that we analyzed the data in multiple different perspectives. First, we looked at the focus groups, that hour and a half over 17 groups. We pulled out trends, data points, key indicators, and then we asked the focus group participants, we went back to them and said, okay, this is what we found. Does this mirror with what you heard during the focus group? Is there anything we missed? And to make sure that we kept industry involved, we also met with operators from diverse backgrounds and regions, presented some of the preliminary findings and said, okay, this is what we have found from the golfers. From an operating standpoint, what are some of the behind the scene things that golfers might not be aware of to make sure that we include that in our overall analysis? What we found when it came to golf motivations is a wide and diverse group of reasons. And at the end of the day, why do golfers golf? None of these really jumped out as something that was off the charts unique. But when we looked at the numbers, and we wanted to ask golfers, why do you golf? And what's your top choice for golfing? And so obviously networking. The numbers you see next to each number is the percentage of survey respondents who indicated that as the most important reason for golfing. So while the focus group created the motivations, we wanted to test the motivations against a much larger sample. And so approximately 2% of that survey response group said that networking was most important. That was at the low end. Competition at 3.5% is the primary reason for some golfers, whether this be tournaments or leagues or even friendly side games. I know as I've gotten to know Dave better over the years and worked with Chris over the last few years, we definitely have a different view on what we view as competition. Some of my colleagues are much more into the competition, where some of us, like myself, just like the side games and the joy that comes from beating our friends in little things like that. Entertainment. As you read and as you look at all the things that we're talking about in golf, golf is a passion for many people. Some are choosing golf not because of the passion, but because it's just an extension of leisure and entertainment. It's not about the game, but it's about the atmosphere. It's enjoying themselves and using golf as a means to actually accomplish that. Once we get to exercise, you see that number go up. So at 7%, that's 7 out of 10 respondents say exercising is the primary reason why they golf. And a lot of this came from a natural progression for athletes in other sports, whether it be pro athletes, semi-pro athletes, college athletes, even those who like to play leisure sports that are a little more aggressive. They found that golf is something they can keep playing, even though their body might have a few more aches and pains. The reason why that asterisk exists right there is I've got some additional information I want to share. And when we talked to when we asked the survey respondents their primary reasons for golfing, while exercise was only 7% of the primary reason, we found that when you looked at the total score, combining up all of the evaluations, that exercise itself was actually the most recognized or the biggest reason for actually participating in golf. And so it's important to know that while exercise is not the primary reason, it is part of the reason that people are golfing. When you move on from that to that motivation, escapism, and Chris mentioned this at the beginning, that this was done pre-COVID. If we had done this now or during this very challenging time we're all going through, I think you would see escapism as probably one of the #1 reasons. But pre-COVID, escapism basically allowed people to get away from work, to get outside, to escape their normal routine. Beauty was also another one of those below 5 percentage points, but it was something that people really enjoyed. Look, we know that developers and operators put an intense amount of energy and effort into making sure a lot of the courses that we all enjoy are attractive, are things that we can spend outdoors and see the beauty that a course offers. And this shows itself because while beauty as a #1 choice, this was actually the most important when you add up all of the different scores. People golf not only for exercise, but they do it because of the environment they're in. We all love the game, we all have a passion for it, and we all have different reasons for it. But beauty is an underlying reason. The green grass, the sights, the sounds, the smells, that's all important consideration. Prestige is on the other end of that spectrum. Okay, for the longest time, there was always this connotation that golf had this prestige to it, that you had to be of a certain stature to play. While only 1% of people indicated this as the primary reason, it's also important to realize that this had the total lowest score. Prestige is not as important as it once was. While there are pockets of golfers who still see the importance of being involved in the game of golf from a prestige standpoint, it has certainly lost some of that importance. Stress is also one of those things. 2% of golfers indicated that golf is a good way to get away from bad stress. And I say bad stress because we all know hitting that little white ball of golf course creates its own set of stressors. But these are good stresses. It lets you think about the game, your swing, the things that you're doing. It lets you forget what's going on at work, what's going on at home. The 3 motivations that I do want to really call out are the challenge, the friends and family, and the love of the game. The reason why is that these are the 3 top choices for why people play the game. 20% of respondents indicated that challenge is the reason why they play the game. They love it. They want to get better at it. They want this to be part of who they are. They want to get better. 24% of people, the second most, indicated that they do it to spend time with friends and family. They do this especially with those who have been introduced to the game, whether it be your father, your mother. A lot of times is spent with those who started us on that passion. And for those who started with friends, you tend to spend more time with them. And so when 24% of respondents indicate friends and family, that tells you that it's not necessarily the course, but the course is the atmosphere to enjoy that relationship you've developed. #1, and I don't think this surprises anybody, is the love of the game, with 31% of people indicating that the passion and the love of the game is the reason why they play. We also wanted to ask, when you're on the golf course, what do you expect from a round of golf? And again, a lot of these are very well understood. Appropriate behavior. Appropriate behavior is a challenge because appropriate behavior can be interpreted differently. And I look at this from a very generational standpoint. I golf with friends who are much older than I, and they would never think of having music on the golf course. When I golf with friends of mine that are younger, they have music playing all the time. So which one of those are appropriate behavior? At the end of the day, it's making sure that you are respecting the quiet, respecting the course, and moving forward. Course quality is something that I don't have to talk about. We all know that greens and bunkers and everywhere in between has to be at a high level. We were talking about this before the session, but the importance of golf as part of the hospitality industry. Interactions between not only clubhouse attendants, but also those on the course have become exceptionally more important. They want to know that the person they're talking to not only cares about the game of golf, but about them as customers themselves. And quality service is right along that line. When you think about operations, everyone is going to say they provide great customer service. But what is that quality service? It's responding to the needs of the guests. Now, through the USGA and many other organizations, the importance of time, whether it be pace of play, time spent on the course, is important. What we did find is that while pace of play is important, it is also the perception of how that time is spent. If you're spending time waiting in the middle of the number 9 fairway trying to get to the green, you are going to be irritated. If you are simply moving along on a regular but slower pace, people are not as concerned about that because they're still moving forward. And that time links right into that value proposition. People want to receive a value. They want to know that they're getting the type of experience they expect for the price and the costs that are incurred. When you think about some of the online booking engines that are now available in our industry, this value proposition is something that is always of concern. And I'm sure to the many people who are joining us today, they're always worried about how do we provide more value so that customers are willing to pay. I like to think about golfer etiquette as the bridge between the history of the game and the current perceptions of the game. The etiquette that the majority of people responded to this point is that it's about pace of play etiquette. It's about making sure that you park your cart in the right spot to make sure that you're moving forward. Rules was a challenge. And I'll say this because rules had people fall on one side or the other. There are those who followed the rules and wanted the rules followed, and there are those who want the rules to be changed to increase enjoyment of the course. These people, while they are on opposite ends of the spectrum, do represent a challenge, because you have the traditional golfers who love the game, have a passion for the game, who really follow the rules, and then you have those who are new and want to make sure that the rules are there to increase their overall fun. This ties into the idea of flexibility. If it's rules and etiquette are there, golfers still want a course that responds to them. If I only want to play 5 holes, how can I make that happen? I love the game. I can't be here for the entire 2 hours or the entire 4 hours. How do we create that flexibility for people who love the game but can't necessarily fall into the traditional ways of looking at it? We also need to become more welcoming. It's looking at new courses, new players, and loyal golfers. If I see Dave every day during the summer when he plays golf, it's easy to know him, his family. How do you then change your operations to be as welcoming to someone who might be new, might not be as comfortable with the game of golf, but you want them to be involved and get engaged as much as possible? Technology is a hard one, because we all know that we have all these new devices, phones, we have GPS-enabled carts, and there seems to be this continual race to offer this technology. There is a large portion of the respondents who indicated that they want to get away from technology. Many people simply leave their phones in the car, or they turn them off and only answer when it's emergency. All of these expectations, desire, come down to one thing, and that's being responsive to the diverse needs of the golfers. Golfers are all very different, and they've indicated that they want you to know who they are as a user and respond to their individual needs.
So a lot of information, and we're going to continue on with the journey. So what we wanted to do was understand the motivations, the expectations, but put it into categories as the guest comes and learns about your golf course, arrives, plays the game of golf, is still on your facility, and then eventually leaves and goes about the next day. And what we wanted to do was to share with you, of the 1,000 touch points that we found, how they fall into each one of these areas. Some of these are desires, some of these are expected, and they all create a motivation or a disruption possibly to the service. Today is about showing the touch points, giving you ideas of what those touch points are. Some of those you're incorporating, some of those you might never, some you might not have heard of, that maybe need to be part of the process. So we have the journey. We call it engage, arrive, golf, exit, and extend. I've got over 1,000 in front of me. I'll need to use my cheat sheets here, but I'm going to move you through some of those. And then on Thursday, we'll look at those touch points and say, of those thousands, these are the ones that are delighters, create a wonderful satisfaction, or these are disruptors and need to bring attention to right away. So let's get started on the journey. All right, the first one is what we call engage. So this is, the guest is always inquisitive. They are 24/7, and they are trying to figure out where to play, when to play, whether it's a returner, whether it's new. And the areas that I just want to share with you and bring to the points is the advertisement. So advertisement can be print, can be digital, can be mass media. Specific examples of those could be digital magazines, your mobile text, newspaper, publications. Where are you putting those dollars that are specific to an individual that might select your golf course? We can't forget about the digital technology that Eric spoke about, in that it is such a platform that continues to develop. They're looking at your website. They want the information. Is the email that they asked about an inquiry, can I play as a 5-some, available for you? That all then ties into the programming and flexibility that we would see if I came to the golf course. And again, this is before they've made that decision to arrive to your front door. When we look at programming, attracting new players, attracting older players, the meet and greet tournaments, what are you providing for a spouse or a significant other if they don't golf? And then the flexibility is, as we talked about, this casual approach. That prestige that we wanted isn't there, isn't as much of a motivator. So when you look at this engagement on this first front, is think about that entire process and how your image, golf course imagery, is being projected. On the engage side of it also, we've got the barriers. And so when they look at your facility with not having been there or recently not have been there, they're going to see how inviting is it? And when I talk about barriers, it's the intimidation factor. I put a picture up because some of the first things that we see when we arrive at a facility, signage is going to be great, important for us, but it's going to be very unwelcoming, and the perception can be not what we want. They're going to also wonder, am I supposed to tip? What is my dress code expectation? Next thing that we'll look at is the touch points that talk about the personas. Is it fun? Is it very strict? How, again, this is coming in the engage perspective, and how that golfer learns about your golf course, having not possibly been there, to be able to feel a comfort and a motivation to go. Pricing, that's something that is always something that you're dealing with. We've hopefully got to less about the discounts and put ourselves more into the value, that we have a price value that is equal to the excitement and the motivations. And then inquiries, when they call, did they pick up? They're searching 24/7. Do you have an automatic reply when an inquiry is put in? Does it go to an info at mailbox? So the engage process, what I want you to get out of this is that there is this constant search about matching their interests to your facility before they've even had a chance to arrive. Okay, they've selected your golf course. They're driving to your golf course. And what they're looking at as they arrive is, the first thing is that curb appeal. And as you and I have been to golf courses a number of times, we show up at our same facility every day. It's time for you to kind of do that mystery shopper and bring in yourself and walk the walk and the visions and the paces that your guests have done. And so we look at curb appeal. Parking stalls. Is it paved, unpaved? Length of time or length of difficulty from the walk to parking to where I get to pay. Again, they have not even got to the golf course on the first tee. Next thing we can look at is the amenities. Amenities are going to be hours of operation. And here's what I say is you need to keep that consistency. I know with weather delays, I know with our seasonalities that we have, is important for you to be able to understand that those hours of operation, the food and beverage options that are given, the atmosphere with the golf carts and bag drop areas, all of those are the amenities that are going to help that it isn't a disruption before they even get to what they came for us for, which is the round of golf. Kirk spoke about the technology. But in this end, technology we want to use and to capture for that data analysis, not necessarily for the golfer to be able to input that email and get a discount. It's being able to use the technology to aid in the convenience for me. I can bypass the golf shop. I can get right to the first tee. I can learn about food and beverage options that are available for me at the first turn. All of those are going to be ways for you to be able to think about the arrival and into the golf course. And then staff interaction. You saw that as a motivation. You saw that as an expectation in our previous work that hiring, selecting individuals that like to be around other individuals and love the hospitality world was something that needs to be reviewed. So staff training, being able to understand that the staff is knowledgeable. Every individual, when asked a question, should be able to understand to a large degree the operations within the entire facility. Also on arrival, process and flow. I put a couple pictures up here. It's hard to see a little bit, but one says to go ahead and go drop off, and the other one says to the parking lot. The process and flow that the individuals asked about and expected was to have it very clear. They want to make sure that the physical structures, the signage, tells me as a first-time player or arrival, or if something has changed, makes it easier so I do not need to hesitate. When it comes to fees and structures, what we're talking about in the rates, what we're talking about here is multiple options based upon seasonality, conditions, playing partners, different groups that have options to be able to possibly meet their needs from a financial perspective. And then general course operations, that's just going to be kind of lumped into everything. And so again, this is the arrival. This is how they're feeling as they come to the facility based upon those interactions or those markers that have been set up before they even got to the first tee. All right. When we looked at and we talked to golfers in those focus groups, we talked about two components of the game of golf. One is this first slide here is going to talk about the golf course itself. So of the 1,000 touch points, the consistency that they wanted in the course design, they wanted to make it sure that it was playable for many different skill levels. Are there enough tees available? Would you consider a capital improvement to be able to have different tees or combo tees to be able to meet the different playing partners that are with the design of the golf course? They also talked about fairways and roughs. Again, our superintendents that are taking all of that time and money and energy. And when we talk about that, we're looking at the quality of the rough, the length, the drainage, the types of grasses. Being consistent from beginning to end is what you're working towards. But this was specifically trying to look at the golf course on the green section, on the green side of it. Tees and greens, this was an area that they spent a lot of time on, and a lot of time it was on the tees. These individuals said the expectations and the touch points that make a difference for them as they enjoy their round are going to be tee box quality, levelness, the markers that they're set correctly. All of those different types of things are going to be ways that they were going to be able to enjoy that. And then we cannot say without the pace of play. Pace of play is something that needs to be monitored as it is from beginning to end. What are the each hole paces? How does it work within each one of the groups? How does it work on a windy day? They had these expectations, and they spoke about these pace of play issues as it relates to their round. Within the same component of once on the golf course, there were the services and features that were expected. And what these referring to were going to be my interactions as a player with the guest. If I'm on the greens, if I'm a ranger, if I'm someone in food and bev, they expected to have these interactions to be communicated, delightful. Again, when a question is asked, an answer will be provided in a short period of time. Those services and features were going to be signage, benches, ball washers, food and bev options, and then on the course characteristics and those other things that kind of make out is when those situations occur, such as shelter. How do I know a storm is coming in? Am I safe within that storm? Are you using certain technologies to keep me safe? These were all of the thousands of touch points that were listed and specific to the golfer when they're playing the round of golf, not just on the course conditions. All right, so we've finished our 9 or 18 holes, and now we are going to exit the golf course. And we're going to stay at the facility. What were the touch points? Again, the desires and motivations that they were expecting. And in this end of it, we were looking at the amenities. And again, I'll stay with the consistency. In the golf courses that I've worked with, and then also in the research that we did, consistency in your hours of operation, consistency in what is offered after the round of golf is important. And I need to pair that together with the employee interaction. When the golfer comes off the golf course and is seeking a place for them to sit, to write down their scores, seeking an opportunity to place their bag down at bag drop, are they greeted with a hello, thank you, how was it, how can I assist, was really mentioned and is an important part of that journey. Yet again, on Thursday, when we talk about all of these different interactions and these features and these opportunities to connect, and build it down, we'll say to you which ones are the most specifics. But again, understanding the journey that the golfer has as they walk off the golf course is something that is really important here. So we're talking about beverage selection. We're talking about access to the golf shop. And I understand that with staffing needs, how we make sure that that individual is there to be able to assist that golf in the late hours or in the early mornings. Those are going to be opportunities for you to think about and kind of, again, walk your way through the guest steps as they make it to your golf course. Next thing is going to be guest services. Do we have bag drop? Are they allowing us to have signage to take the golf cart into the parking area? All of these are going to be ways for us to help through it. Again, through the exit and the facilities, we're talking about showers, facilities, we're talking about food and bev options, those incentives for us to be able to return to play. And then the post round is going to be being able to upload pictures, either it's to the website, either it's to social media, however they're going to work through that. That engagement is actually happening while they're sitting there, and yet it could be posted on a different form of media. Just a couple other things here before we get into some Q&A. Next thing is going to be the extent. And the last thing is you'll notice with all of these previous slides, as we went through the journey, there were always 2 slides to each one of these journeys, from the engage to the arrival to the golf to the exit and now to the extend. We defined it to the extend as they have left the property, and here's more of an opportunity for us to re-engage. But it had the least amount of touch points for us. How can we, as owner and operators, try to figure out how we continue to extend to bring them back into that engagement? What we talked about here was this re-engagement. Is it a personal phone call? building these relationships beyond we have your money. Other touch points that they mentioned was the follow-up, the frequency, the timings of the push-outs, the surveys via social media within your own website. They also mentioned, again, that digital contact, and then those incentives. How do we bring them back? Maybe it's shorter periods of time before we've had interactions. And then the overall perspective is that we need to have this value that's been created. When the value is created, when I've taken my time, you've heard me through my motivations, you've written to me specifically about what I want to expect at the golf course, creates the value, which is that ever question about the price of the time and the energy for me to coming to the golf course to being able to enjoy my stay at the golf course. So a lot of information, a lot of data there for you. Hopefully we gave you an opportunity to see that motivation and those desires as it went through the journey and the touch points that were associated with each. So I'm going to pause here for a minute. And I'm going to bring back in our colleagues that were with us, with Dave and Eric, and talk about these top line outcomes. And what we wanted to share was that the experiences are many, the motivations are great, the touch points were thousands in each one of those stages. And what we hope to share with you is that it was this increasing importance beyond the round of golf that the golfer is always sharing and searching for. Any comments with my colleagues on that?
I think the other important thing is that all the desires and wants and needs, they exist across the entire spectrum of the experience. And you and I spent a lot of time talking about this. Courses seem to have done a really good job of catering to the needs of the golfers before and during a round. But the greatest opportunity is after the round. There's still a need to, if I get done golfing with my friends and I want to, maybe have a beverage or two after the round, I want a course that is open but also facilitates a good time, asks me, inquires about my round, makes it part of the experience. It's just so very important that you think about all these needs and wants, desires, not just before and during, but after. Those are the courses that are going to get it, that are going to capitalize on these opportunities the most.
Yeah, maybe what I'll add, Eric, is that the broad perspective is critically important here. As the USGA in the green section, we're still going to be focusing in on the opportunities in that middle stage on the course. We know that's where our sweet spot is. That's where we can make the biggest impact on the information, the data that we can offer to help facilities give a great experience on the course. And we all know that and as we'll get into next time on Thursday, that those are very impactful touch points and that there are opportunities to improve there that can be very meaningful and create that value.
So the strategic implications is we wanted to make sure you're aware of the touch points. They're extensive. We wanted to make sure that of the stages that there are these feelings and these emotions that come about. And then as Eric started our discussion today about understanding those expectations and those desires. So on Thursday, we'll go through and we'll talk specifically about all of those touch points and narrow them down. But right now, we'll just kind of leave it for an opportunity for questions and answers. Lots of data.
Well, hello, folks. I'm welcoming myself back to the screen. How are you? Thanks very much. We've got a few questions coming in. I'm just going to get right to them here. I'll put them up on the screen. And from Steve Judd, thank you, Steve, for participating today. Might have mentioned the other day in our lead-up session, how did the research address individuals with disabilities and what they want from their experience with the game?
Steve, I remember that question very, very clearly because that's something that, when we talked about some of these results, people were surprised at the importance that golfers look at disabilities and what they want to experience from the game. The research didn't necessarily dive in specifically to looking at disabilities, But what we did find is that it is definitely elevated as one of the most important things that anything we do looking forward, especially, as Dave mentioned for the green section, looking at that on course. How do we facilitate a round of golf for someone who might not have all the abilities they had, when they were younger, or as other golfers do have?
Excellent. Here's another one regarding pricing during the engage phase. How did that touch point stack up compared to other touch points related to importance? Is it more or less important to different demographics or players?
Yeah, it was prevalent throughout the entire process. It was mentioned. It was not necessarily about the specific price of that golf course, but it was about an understanding. And I do believe that we unfortunately have put ourselves in a position within the golf industry to be able to say that we don't provide, probably before, an opportunity that would say this experience and this ability to escape and the motivation deserves the price point that it has. And so in answering that, during the pricing, what they were looking for in the engagement time was a clear ability to find the price. They were looking in the engage, whether that's on the social media, on a third party, within their websites. They wanted to be able to find what those rates were and be able to make the decision as to what the price should be based upon the demand or the volume and the capacity of the golf course. In other words, if I go early or if I go later in the afternoon, I might have different pacing, which also should equate itself to the experience.
Okay, great. Thank you. How would you recommend a course view these touch points and relate them to their specific operations or budget to help them focus improvement areas that are in the best interest of their particular property? Because every property is a little bit unique. There's a lot of common trends, right? So it's a lot of data, right? It's a lot of great data. So, I know we might get into this next week a little bit more, but, Thursday, but, what do they do with this data that can really help them towards the bottom line?
Well, I think, yes, this data and all of the selections of information on the journey is overwhelming. Two things we wanted to make sure is to make sure that you understood, and we'll share all of those touch points in the releasing more data on that, is that the touch points are duplicated many, many times throughout the process of the journey. But as it relates to what the actual cost is and how it relates to a return on investment, that we weren't able to get into. What we wanted to make sure was that of all of those touch points, that you as an operator are able to say, hey, I didn't realize I was doing that. Competitive advantage is individual down the way is doing that, and my golfer has experienced it. It's something I should at least look into. And then you have to build it obviously into your budget to make sure that's an opportunity.
Okay, great. This was I believe it's kind of a statement question. Thank you, Chip. If courses required payment ahead of the tee time that would help make their check-in faster and seamless, certainly, would it make their experience better? I think, again, your study was, pre-COVID. We saw a lot of this during COVID with touchless check-in and stuff like that. Just kind of curious about your kind of general take on that. Although, was touchless check-in part of your pre-COVID study at all, or is that like kind of after the fact? Wow, that would have been able to go and ask about. Where are you at on that?
There's going to be a mix, Chip. At the end of the day, there are some golfers who want to have that interaction, and there are going to be those golfers that want to check in and just get right to the first tee and get moving. And so I would echo what Chris said, is that while every course is different, you're going to have to look and understand what your segments are, what groups of customers you go after, and what do they want. Some people are going to want to interact. They're going to want to ask questions. Others are going to just get there and want to go and get on with the round of golf.
Okay, great. I think we've got time for one more question here, and it's directed at Chris, but I think anybody can take it, depending. Chris, as an operator, what was that wow moment during the research when you saw a really big or surprising disconnect between what the golfer is really looking at that's important to them versus what the course may have thought was like super important to them?
There were many. What I take away is, again, the experience. We are in the business of creating a memory, whether it is a municipal golf course to, an individual golf course that's hosted a U.S. Open. It is about understanding the journey. And if you and I, as operators, haven't gone out and played our golf course, haven't gone onto our website, haven't gone and arrived and parked in the parking lot where our guests park, been out there and interacted with our staff and have had interaction with slow play and nobody's done anything about it. And then they come off the round of golf and they go into our golf course to have a beverage or two. If we haven't gone through that journey, you'll be wowed by what you're doing really well. And you'll be wowed by there's the disconnect. Eric and I conducted these focus groups. You can do these things. I know you say you don't have enough, we work from sun up to sundown, but I think the most important area that is about the human interaction and the hospitality that we give. And I'll leave it with this, which is we're worried sometimes that if someone pays online and skips our golf shop and then goes out to the first tee, that we're losing opportunities for them to come in and possibly create those other revenue streams through food and beverage, golf shop sales. Trust yourself that if you create a great experience, that if you understand their journey of how they came to and from and about your facility, and you made it effortless and easy for them, and you listened to them and you heard them, and again, we'll drill this down on Thursday, those specific ones that need to be addressed right off the bat, is they'll come back and they'll spend time and they'll want to spend time, especially post-COVID when we have an opportunity to be together with each other more.
Chris, I'll just follow up on that quickly, Dave, if I may, just to say that, yeah, this has been a very general presentation today. We're going to get more specific on Thursday, and the research continues. Chris and Eric continue to dive into this, and we're going to, as the USGA, work to apply this to golf courses and be able to give specific, actionable information that can be used to answer more specific questions, like some of the ones that were raised today. So we're going to give you more on Thursday, and we're continuing to work in this area to be more and more practical and give better and better solutions. Well, thank you, Dave, and Chris and Eric, thank you as well for your time today. Obviously, we're going to have a command performance on Thursday at 1 o'clock. And to your point, we're going to get more in detail about some of these really specific things that came out of the data on where operators can kind of focus on and put their energy towards. And with that, unless you have any other parting words of wisdom for us today, we'll call that a wrap and look forward to talking to you Thursday. Sounds great.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, great. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.